Cocaine Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem, help others to recover from their addiction. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop using cocaine and all other mind-altering substances. There are no dues or fees for membership. We are fully self-supporting through our own contributions. We are not aligned with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. We do not wish to engage in any controversy, and we neither endorse nor oppose any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay free from cocaine and all other mind-altering substances and to help others achieve the same freedom. We use the 12 steps of recovery because it has already been proven that the 12-step recovery programme works. So tonight, our first share, I've asked Lucy to come and share her experience, strength and hope for 30 minutes, and then I'll open the floor for 15 minutes for people to share back on what Lucy's shared with you. Do you need the mic? Do you want the mic?
Can everyone hear me? I'd prefer to go micless. My name's Lucy and I'm an addict. Thank you, I think, for asking me to come and share. I'm really nervous, so please just bear with me. Tonight's weather forecast, cloudy, chance of tears, and hopefully a bit of a solution at the end. Suppose I'll start at the beginning and a bit of background to what led me to these rooms. I grew up in a lovely home, mum, dad, sister, nice upbringing, working family. Had everything that I wanted and needed in life. So, you know, I hear people that have had turbulent childhoods, you know, and that's not my story. I had a good upbringing. And the reason I say that is because I look for excuses, or I used to look for excuses as to why I was the way that I was and why I did the things that I did. Well, it's funny because I were in a meeting last night and I'm going to go back in the book to a paragraph that we read out of it last night, and it were talking about stealing and stuff, and stealing were my first addiction because it gave me, like, it was the thrill of it, or that I were trying to fill a void, which at that time I didn't know that. I didn't know why I were doing it. I just liked the feeling that it gave me, you know, nicking money out of my dad's wallet or from family and friends, and I didn't need it because if I needed anything I could ask for it and I'd get it, so it wasn't that I needed to do it. You know, I went through school was fine up until I went to high school, and then I decided that I was going to be the class clown and decided to fit into where I thought I wanted to fit in. You know, I'm quite a good chameleon. I can do things to fit where I felt that I needed to be. And from a young age, about 14, 15, I found drink. And when I look back now, like, even the very first time that I did it, I was the one that took it way too far, and I was throwing up down my mate's bedroom wall. You know, just absolutely out of it. Feeling tipsy wasn't enough. I had to take it to a whole other level. I didn't finish school because I was never there. So I didn't do my GCSEs and stuff, and I left school. Got to 18 and I found parties, drugs, cocaine entered my life at about 18, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I can't sit here and say that I didn't like drinking and I didn't like taking drugs, because I did. You know, at that age, I loved it, going out on a Friday night or a Thursday. But again, going out on a Thursday night and not coming home till Sunday and thinking that that's normal. You know, waking up in places that I don't know where I am. But that continued, and I managed to hold down jobs. Well, I said I managed to hold down jobs, but it ended as a plural. You know, I never had a solid job. I was constantly from one to other. I managed to get them, but keeping them were a totally different thing. I met my eldest son's dad, and I'm mindful that they're out there, but my sister's on bouncer duties, so she's in and out. And I had my eldest son, and the relationship with him, again, like, for me, I'm addicted to anything, whether it be people, drugs, sex, money, shopping. Everything I do it to an extreme. And the relationships that I put myself into were always turbulent. They were always codependency and violence and just manic, mental, crazy stuff. Again, I thought I were all right for a long time because I kept my house. My house was tidy. You know, I had a job. My son were dressed, looked after, fed, you know, happy. And progressively, that, you know, to the outside world, everything were all right. And I didn't know that they were all wrong. I was completely oblivious. Fast forward a bit further. And as well, I got involved with some really mental stuff. Armed robberies, murders, you know, and I'm thinking, this shaking addict sat here today that can't even think what I'm saying in front of you all, getting involved with all this mental stuff. And I went to Turkey for a while, but I think it got to a point where, you know, my dad, there were police turning up at his house, you know, looking for guns and knives, and he didn't know what were going on. He didn't know whether I were alive, dead, in a gutter, you know, but I didn't care. I wasn't bothered. I were having fun. What does that matter? And I went to Turkey for a bit. When I were over there, I didn't use drugs, but I drank to oblivion. You know, the fish balls and just everything in excess. Came back again, still didn't think there were aught wrong with me. And I ended up, I fled from my eldest son's dad. And I were on my own for a period of time. And again, even throughout all this, you know, I was still using 3-4 times a week, thinking that were all right. Because I wasn't doing it every day, or I wasn't injecting, or I wasn't on crack, or I wasn't doing this and I wasn't doing that. So I'm all right. And then I fell pregnant with my youngest son. And again, I still didn't think I had a problem, and I was using whilst I was pregnant. You know, and step 1 talks about we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. Like, I had to do a lot of work on what that word meant. You know, and I know today that for me, powerless means that I have no control. Once I put one in me, there is no control. You know, I share this often. People that have heard me share before will have heard me say it. I lost my kids in 2019, and I'll never, ever, ever forget the feeling. You know, it were like someone walked through my front door, put their hand into my body and ripped out my soul. You know, I remember falling to the floor and the noise that came out of me. That's all I can describe it as. And I vowed that day that I would never, ever, ever use again. And 2 days later, I was back on the phone to my dealer. You know, that's powerlessness. I cannot, when I'm in a sick state of mind, spiritually, mentally, physically, if I put stuff in me, I have zero control. You know, and I share this often as well. I heard a lady once, and I've always carried it with me because it really rung true to me. And she was sharing, and she said, you know, like, I would take a bullet for my children, but I'd step over him to use. And that's the powerlessness for me. You know, they weren't enough. And that's sad. It's really sad when I look at it now, clean and sober. You know, they're my world. But yet I still couldn't stop doing what I was doing. I had a period of sobriety. When the boys lived with my mum, you know, I'm very lucky, very, very lucky that my mum was able to take the boys. Because if not, you know, they'd have been in care, and who knows where that'd have ended up, you know. And I'm very grateful for the time that I've had with them, even throughout my addiction after that point, because, you know, again, I've met women in these rooms that didn't have that luxury, you know. So I am very, very lucky and blessed in that sense. And I went and lived in a recovery house. And I had about 14, 15 months sobriety, and I thought, I've boxed it. Do you know, my kids were staying on a weekend again, I'd passed my driving test, I was working in services. Lucy knew everything. You couldn't tell me nothing. You know, I knew the answers, I knew the solution. And I started running off self-will. You know, and it talks about it in this book, again, quite near the bit that I'm going to read at the end. Self-will and self-knowledge. Do you know, I cannot run off self-knowledge because I know nothing. My best thinking brought me to these rooms, do you know, in the kindest way possible, because there's nowhere else I'd rather be than surrounded by you guys now. But my best thinking led me to these meetings, you know, and it's not great. It's not great. When Lucy steps in, everyone else gets pushed aside. You know, not intentionally, but I have a sick mind. So if I let that take control of me, it's game over. And I ended up picking up. And you know, it speaks about how cunning, baffling and powerful this disease is. Like, it's insidious. It was really random. It were in summer, and I'd passed beer gardens and stuff, and it had not interested me. And I were on bus one day, and this guy, you know, he cracked open this can of cider, right? Cheapest one that you could find. Like I say, I've been past all beer gardens, not bothered. And I thought, that looks nice. Wasn't even my thing, and it was literally that simple. Half a lager, and 18 months of pure hell later, you know, I found myself living in back of a transit van. And going out for that one half a lager, you know, it were horrendous. It were absolutely horrendous. But I got away with it the first time that I did it. I got away with it, and I thought, I've done it. I can do it successfully. So I did it again, and then again, and because I had a glimmer of a programme, you know, I'd had time around this stuff, but I'd never actually worked it. I'd talked the talk, but I'd never actually put it into action or applied it into anywhere in my life. In my life, it was just lip service the whole way through, and I was doing it for all the wrong reasons. I was doing it for social services. I was doing it for my children. And that might sound like harsh when I say all the wrong reasons, because they are one of the reasons. But as I've already said, because I don't have power, they're not enough. You know, I needed to do it for me, and I think still at that time, I had zero care for myself. So for me, using were a form of self-harm, because I didn't want to look at anything else around me. And very quickly, you know, it says, doesn't it? We don't. In my head, at that moment, I thought, it's going to take me back to Bradford, to Boiler House, where I'm throwing shapes around at 18 years old, having a right good time. And it didn't. It took me straight back to where I left off, but worse. You know, I'm in my kitchen, not breathing because I can hear better. I can hear people in cupboards, you know, borrowers invaded my house because just the insanity. You know, honestly, it was just, when I look back now and I think, wow, you know, and step two, you know, coming to believe in a power greater than us, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And again, I remember thinking, you know, I heard the word God a lot, and I thought, what the fuck are they on about? Like, what the... I just didn't get it. And someone had to break it down to me, and they said, you know, like, if I sit down and look, and I'm jumping forward a little bit here, but doing my step 4 helped me to do this. If I look at all the things that I've survived and lived through, something greater has always been with me, because it wasn't me. It wasn't me that did them things, or that kept me alive. You know, all the scenarios that I'd put myself in, the times where I'm, you know, walking around streets barefoot. This time last year, because again, this addict thought it were a great idea to go get a job in a pub. That'll fix me. I'll get a job in a pub. Money will start coming back in. I'll be all right. And I spent last New Year's Eve walking around streets in a t-shirt, a vest and no shoes because I thought that people were trying to kill me. You know, and to live through that. And again, it speaks in here, it speaks about the gates of it. All that's waiting for me now, if I go back out, is, you know, the latter, the death. And it speaks about the gates of insanity and death. And again, I didn't know what that meant, but I have been at them gates, you know, because I got to a point where I didn't want to live, I didn't want to die, I didn't want to use, but I didn't know what else to do. And it used to terrify me. And the only thing I genuinely believe, the only thing that kept me alive was God, and knowing that even though I didn't feel worthy, I had two really small people that depended on me, you know, even though at the time I felt worthless and like, you know, that they did. My head were telling me that they'd be better off without me. You know, now looking back, I know that that's my selfish thinking, you know, because they wouldn't. They need a mum, they deserve a mum, you know. But it used to terrify me because I used to sit and fantasise about, you know, finishing it because I was tired. And then I used to get scared because I'd think, well, you know, we know that the same with my disease, it centres in my thinking. You know, that thought, if I sit on it and let it grow and grow and grow, very quickly it's going to turn into an action, and that terrified me. And I knew I was losing my house, and they were a part of me, and I thank God every day. Like 3rd of March this year, I got clean, and it was when I lost my house, and it's really strange because I literally had nothing. You know, I had a mattress that I'd kept salvaged out on at bedrooms, and I put it in back at van, and I knew that if I picked up that I wouldn't survive, because either the drugs were going to take me because of how excessively I was using and how insane I was going when I were on them, or my mental health were going to finish me, because I wanted it to when I had an house around me. So I knew, and I've been clean since, and I came back to the rooms. Now, when the previous sobriety that I had that I mentioned, I were in a different fellowship, and the very first meeting that I ever went to was a CA meeting, and it were in Huddersfield. And this time, I could tell you, you know, where there were a meeting every single day for the other one, and I had zero willingness to go to them. I just couldn't. I don't know what it was. I don't know whether it was pride or whatever, but I just couldn't go. And I came to a CA meeting, and instantly I just felt home. And I know that might sound a bit cliche and a bit cheesy, but I genuinely did. The literature, it speaks differently to me. Like, I read it, and even, because again, I thought, well, I'm not like them, my mind, separating me, differences, and not because it reads from the book of AA. Well, I've never had a problem with drink. Well, no, you've never had a problem with drink, Lucy, but as soon as you have a drink, you're on phone to your dealer when you get at bottom. His number's inscribed at bottom of the thing. You know, it's a gateway for me. It's just an excuse, his drink. So, but the literature really does speak to me. You know, and step 3 for me this time was so powerful. Like, it was such a beautiful step. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. For me, my perception has changed as my recovery has progressed, because to learn to live clean and sober, I had to be told. I had to work these steps. I had to work with my sponsor. So to understand my spirituality, I have to learn on that as well. So I developed that in my own way, but you know, it's the universe, it's God, it's angels, I was bonkers when I first found step 3, and it says, you know, sometimes I'm a bit nervous, so I'll probably get all words jumbled up, but, you know, this spiritual awakening can sometimes slowly, sometimes quickly, they will always materialise if we work for him. And for me, it seemed to be a really quick thing, but I think that was because I was ready. Like, I was so ready. I wanted to live again. I wanted to live for me, because I deserve a life. You know, I deserve to feel happy and at peace. And I went to my sponsors to do my step 3, and it were really, I cried my eyes out. Atif's had bets on with me. Oh, I've just seen a friend down. I wish I hadn't seen you. I were all right till I saw someone that I knew. But he's got bets on that. I said, I've put bets on if you cry. I said, it's not if, it's how long till I do. But yeah, I cried on the step 3 because I just felt this overwhelming sense of peace and connection. You know, it was lovely. My step 4, I heard a lot of horror stories around step 4 me, and do you know what? It was one of the best things that I've ever done for myself, because it were always someone else's fault. It were never my fault. Never ever my fault. It were the ex-partner's faults for treating me how they treat me, or it were my mum's fault, or it were my dad's fault, or it were everybody else's fault but my own. You know, and doing a step 4 made me see that were just an absolute pile of shite. You know, it were just excuses. I'd use off any excuse. So if I could find something that I could hold on to and sit with and be resentful, and you know, I'd sit with it, and I'd use on it for a long time. And I learnt a lot. And step 4 also helped me to let go of a lot of stuff, because, you know, and for me, it's not just because I felt a bit like I were a bit unsure on that as well. I thought, well, do I have to start like really beating myself up because I've been a shit person as well? And that ain't what it's about. You know, it's about accepting my part in things and seeing patterns in my behaviour, and I saw so many. But I also managed to let go of a lot of stuff that I had a lot of fear around. And by working with a sponsor that I trust, and the relationship that I have with my sponsor is beautiful. It really is. She's God's sent her to me. He really has. She's a blessing. Step 5, you know, reading it out to her. Find someone that you feel comfortable with, you know, that you trust, because you've got to get honest. You've got to get honest. I can't leave bits out. I can't. And the what? I tried my best, you know, and the end where I sat and I looked and I thought, just say it. Just clinging on to stuff. Clinging on. Well, I'm not saying that because she'll think, fucking hell, do you know what I mean? And I shared it with her, and she's kind of like, you know, is that it? Or me too? You know, and it's nice that, because I thought I were a bad person, and I'm not. I were a sick person. Step 6, defects of character. I didn't think I had any of them. Like, again, like, what are they? I'm good, I'm perfect. But I'm not. I'm very defected. And I think my biggest one that I've learned, and that I still struggle with today, is people pleasing. Because I try to help everyone, but sometimes that can be a detriment to myself. You know, I'll spin 100 plates at once, and whilst I'm doing that, no one's taking care of me, you know. And when I say no one's taking care of me, what I really mean is I'm not taking care of me. Because for so long, I've searched for stuff in people, in drugs, in anything that I could get my hands on, when all along what I was searching for were me. You know, and to find that, I have to work this programme, and I have to go through the steps. And again, I was thinking this morning, because I tried rehearsing overnight, right? I didn't sleep, because I tried rehearsing what I was going to say. Literally didn't sleep, and I thought, well, there's no point, because no one will come out like that anyway. But I was thinking today about when I've heard people say it past, like, it took me to my knees. I understand what that means today, because my disease took me to my knees. It takes me to my knees every morning and every night now, because I do not want to go back to where I came from. I don't want to go back there. So I get on my knees every morning and I pray. And when I first started doing it, I didn't even know what I was, just having a little chat. Because I didn't know. I didn't know what I was doing. I felt a bit stupid. But, you know, I'll get down on my knees and I'll have a chat with whoever's listening. If it keeps me clean and it keeps me sober, you know, I'll do that. And by doing it every day, I've got a better understanding now, and I don't just talk shite to whoever's listening. You know, I've got and it grounds me. It sets me up for the day. You know, gratitude. I start my day every day with gratitude. And it's funny because before, when I had the last period of sobriety, I wasn't grateful for all. And I had everything around me. You know, my kids, a lovely home I'd built up, and I was not grateful for one single thing of it. And today, you know, I'm still homeless. I live in an homeless shelter. But I am grateful for what this programme's given me, and I'll speed it up a bit because I've rambled on and I didn't think I was gonna. But, you know, by working this programme, my children are sat through there tonight. You know, I'm going to see in 2025 with my children. That is the first new year in 5 years that I've been with them two little boys. You know, this year I'm 10 months sober tomorrow as well and clean. You know, I've done a triathlon and raised £500 for charities, you know, all thanks to this programme in space of 10 months. Like, it's mental. But again, because I'm an addict, I don't do things by halves, you know. But of all the things that I've got that mean the most to me, my peace, my sanity, you know, and again, I know what that, when we say the serenity prayer, you know, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. I have acceptance today. You know, this year's been tough. I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about others, things that I've possibly not seen. It's been turbulent, to say the least. But I know, because I've worked this programme to the best of my ability and I've found the connection, you know, that's how I've managed to stay clean and sober. And I just want to share this. So I found this, my son, my eldest son, oh, this is where you're going to get the tears. He likes writing and stuff. And a couple of weeks before I got clean, I was cleaning the car out, and I came across one of his little notebooks, so I'm having a flick through. And I came across this. And it says, God, please let me live with my mum. Please, God, please. And I've kept it with me ever since. And thanks to this programme and my connection to God, you know, every day that I stay clean, I'm a day closer to fulfilling my little boy's prayer. You know, so if you're new around or you're struggling, you know, please stay connected. I hope someone took something from that. But I thank God every day that I'm clean and for the blessings that I've got. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you.